I want to ask you to go into a little bit more detail about intent casting.
Yeah.
Both, what it is, how you imagine it working in practice, and what do you think the path to this becoming kind of an instantiated thing in the marketplace is going to be?
Well, there are several parts to it. Obviously, we're going to need something that's either an app or, and I'd actually advise people to think not only beyond the browser, but beyond the app. The app is also, the app's like 5 years old or something like that. And there are too many of them, and they all don't get along with each other very well. So I would think that generally let's say if we connect these two things, let's say I own a stroller for twins. I've forgotten it. I want to get another one. But I have in my personal cloud an image of that, a version of that. Let's say it's made by a Graco or somebody. It's just a brand name that jumps into my mind because they've done advertising. Or Fisher Price or somebody, they make a stroller. I had one, I liked it. I want another one, okay? Preferably, I bring up something, preferably latest model, and oh, by the way, here's my chain of companies I'm loyal to or I would like to do business with. I might have a preference for fast. I might have a preferred bank. The bank, and I've talked to banks about this, the bank may have a relationship, say, with a courier service. And the bank may come back to me and say, oh, we have these two couriers, this one could be here faster, but the other one's cheaper. Which one do you want? In other words, when we start wiring together services that are already API'd out there, Craig Burton, who's one of the fathers of Novell back in the 80s, talks about the API economy that's coming along, and that what we're going to have in the future, we already have it now to some extent, is that the skyline of buildings we see now is going to be a skyline of APIs where every company is turned inside out, where their core competencies are exposed through APIs. So if we can do API jazz with that, or there are trusted fourth parties, we call them, which are third parties working.
I love the phrase API jazz because
that's his term.
Right.
It's great. So, and we don't have jazz yet, but we could. These are all instruments, right?
But I guess, okay, sorry.
So one other piece too is terms. Right now, what we deal with terms are, you go to a website, you go to a service, and we're being the calves to their cows. The power asymmetry is absolute, and we just check off, yeah, okay, or whatever you said, because it's I'm screwed, so I'm just going to check off, accept, right? That's not really very good. We can do better than that. In freedom of contract ceremonies that we have, say if we rent a wheelbarrow, here's a deposit on the wheelbarrow, bring your bank in good shape or you lose the deposit, not complicated, right? We can have similar things with online or in the electronic marketplace where we can say, here are my terms. I mean, this data is good for this use, don't use it for these other things. You, my trusted fourth party or my trusted vendor, can use it for whatever you want. You can improve advertising to me with it, that's fine. You can follow me around if you want, because I don't mind you following, I don't mind you knowing how I'm doing, what I'm doing with this stroller necessarily. But I might mind knowing what I'm doing with some other thing, but we'll have control over that. And we're working on terms right now with the Berkman Center as well.
Well, so here are a couple of my concerns. I'd love to get your reflection. I can see absolutely how that works with strollers or cars or cameras, high involvement products and categories. But as you know, most advertising, most of the expenditures are actually for low involvement products and categories people just don't really care about. In fact, the reason there's so much advertising is because people don't care about most products and services. And I worry both about, it's funny, I wanted to say the little guys getting left behind. Creators of packaged goods are not little guys, they're big companies. But people don't care that much about detergents and toothpaste, and you're kind of creating a system that almost requires them to care and to register an opinion.
Obviously, some purchases are going to be more considered than others. Commerce is a massive, complicated thing, and we're going to be building this out, whatever this is. In fact, we're building out everything. Everything is all scaffolding. I don't know if you've noticed this. There's no complete building here yet. It's all this vernacular architecture. We're constantly erecting and tearing down and re-erecting, and that goes to the browser people. That's why they're all different. They all have different approaches, and there's not much consistency between them. We're all just improvising, as it were. I think an interesting thing about the low involvement packaged goods is That is one of the most mature things in all of advertising. And that's where brands came from. I didn't say it here, but it's interesting to me that the term brand comes to us from the cattle industry and comes to us from a very early stage in advertising when it was all about brute force. And you and I talked about this the other day. Procter & Gamble said, we're going to compete in shelf wars with the A&P, which is then like 10 years old, and we're going to do it by putting one kind of soap in 8 different boxes and singing about the difference. And that's going to be branding. And interestingly, when Clue Train came out, one of the first people we heard from was Procter & Gamble. They called up David Weinberger and said, all these internet people are talking about branding. We're trying to pry ourselves away from it. You know, it's like, that's old stuff for us. We want to do the new thing. What's that, right? So, you know, I think that you know, old-fashioned advertising will handle a lot of that. You know, I'm likely to buy Tide, right? I'm likely to buy Tide because I know the brand, it's got a lot of shelf space, and Consumer Reports likes it.
Right,
End of story.
And your mother probably bought it too.
Probably.
Yeah.